Hi, Keith Street family. Welcome to Thursday's Thoughts. Today, I wanted to share with you some of the conversation that we've been having in our Wednesday night life groups. And we've been going through the book of Daniel, and just one chapter at a time. So I wanted to kind of share today some of the discussion that we've been having in class, because it's been really great and enriching. Today, I wanted to share Daniel chapter 3. And a lot of us know Daniel chapter 3 as the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego chapter, which is a great story. And if just to kind of recap that story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are put in a really tight spot. King Nebuchadnezzar builds this big statue, golden statue, and tells them, everyone will worship this idol, this statue, and if you don't, the consequences for it would be thrown into the fiery furnace. And then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego go before the king because they have not given in to that, and they have not bowed. And so the king says, hey, this is your last chance to serve and to do what I say and to worship this idol, or you'll be thrown into the fiery furnace. And it's amazing, if you know the outcome of this story, God saves them from that. And there's one half of this story that I think is amazing to think about, and that's just the miracle of what God did for these three followers of his. And he saved them from the fire. The scripture says that they didn't get burned up. They didn't even smell like smoke. Not a hair on their head was singed at all. And if you think about it, there was even more miracles that had to have taken place for them just to stay alive. Some of the things that I didn't think about before was the fact that being in the fire, yes, they survived that, and that's amazing, but that means that God had to provide a way for them to breathe, because in that furnace, all the oxygen would have been burned up. I can only imagine what it would have been like to be in their situation, and the closer that you get to the fire, Scripture says that the guards that were going to throw them into the furnace, that they died, they got burned up, and I would imagine that the ropes that were binding their wrist would also have just dissolved from the fire and the heat. And so I can just imagine how amazing that is. The closer you get to the fire, and then being in the fire, them just looking around each other, being like, oh my goodness, are you witnessing what is happening? I knew God could do this, and look what's happening. That's an amazing part of the story to think about, the miracle of what God did. But when I think of this story, and every time I read this story, the miracle is not the part that pops out to me the most. The thing that I think about is when they were standing before the king, and what that experience must have been like. Let me read the scripture from you. This is Daniel chapter 3, and starting at about 15. And it says, this is King Nebuchadnezzar, "But if you do not worship, you will immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But even if he doesn't, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Their faithfulness was not contingent on God doing what they asked him to do. It didn't matter. The outcome was not their primary focus at that point. They had already made up their minds. I know that God can do this, but even if he doesn't, I will still be faithful, and I'll still serve my God. How many people can you think of, or have you heard of, who has walked away from the faith because maybe they feel like God let them down, or maybe God did not act exactly the way that they wanted God to act, or when they wanted God to act? And so out of feeling like maybe God let them down, they walk away from it altogether. I'm reminded of the scripture that says to live is Christ and to die is gain. I mean, if we have truly surrendered our life over to God, then that means all the outcomes that come along the way are in his hands. We give him control of our life. And I really think that one of the hardest parts about being a Christian is to surrender the control of our life and all the outcomes that come with it over to him. I know that in my situations in life, that is not a one-time thing. A lot of times that is something that you have to wake up and do over and over and over again, saying, God, I give you my life. I give you all of it. And that can be really, really difficult for people who really like to take control. And I think that's a lot of our notions to do the same. God has saved my soul from hell. And I know because he's done that great thing alone, God does not owe us anything. God has done more than we deserve just by our salvation alone. And so when we ask God for things, I think it's good to remember that he doesn't owe us anything, because we owe him our everything because of everything that he's already done for us. I think about this portion of Scripture, and it's the even if that stands out to me. God, even if you don't do what I'm asking you to do, I will still remain steadfast to you. How many of you have ever had an even if moment? And if you haven't yet, you will. We all will have an even if moment. Maybe yours is, God, I'm sick and I need a miracle and I need you to come through. But even if you don't, I will serve you with every breath that you give me. God, I really need this job. My family's in a tight spot and we're depending on you here. I really need this, God. But even if you don't have this job work out, I'm trusting that you are faithful and you will take care of me anyway. God, my marriage is on the rocks and I really need help right now. I'm doing everything that I know to do to fix this. I need your help. But even if you don't, I will follow you and I will be faithful to you and I will trust you. I don't want to dare minimize how difficult these moments in our life could be. They are extremely difficult to come to that place of you're either scared or you're angry because of outcomes, but all of it doesn't matter, because when you're in that even if moment, I really believe that those are the moments that touch God's heart. There is nothing, I'm really convinced that there's nothing that touches the heart of God than complete surrender and worship in the midst of our storms. I'm reminded of Isaiah chapter 43, verses 1 and 2. This is one that many of us have heard. But it says, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you." He is there with you in the middle of it all. He gives us his word. And God has never failed me, not once. And he'll never fail you either, not once, if you surrender over to him your life daily. I would rather be in the midst of the storm. I would rather be in the midst of the flood. I would rather be in the midst of the fire and be with God than to be anywhere else without him. He's never failed me. He's never let me down. And he will do the same for you. He will be there for you as well. So just a little Thursday thoughts today, and I hope this ministers to you and speaks to you. May God bless you and be with you this week. Thank you, church.